guys, so it's 20 here and welcome back to Springwood. Today's episode, I'm finally going to start building something in Springwood. I feel like ever since Springwood returning back to my channel, all I've done is fix problems and place down roads. But in this episode, we're finally going to start working on this neighborhood that I have pretty much just been figuring out the foundations and working out exactly where I want neighborhoods to fit and roads to go. The last episode we did mostly the road networks. Actually, we did only roads, and I'm really glad I did it in that way, because in this episode I can focus generally on how I want these neighborhoods to look. And you know, City Skylines, the general I guess the general scale of City Skylines is something that I always struggle with, because I think I tend to make my cities a lot larger than what the game developers had anticipated for this game. And, you know, trying to figure out how big buildings are in comparison to how big a suburb should probably be. So for instance, this area that I'm working in at the moment is probably the size of a suburb in comparison to the actual whole of Springwood. But in terms of the scale of this map and how big I'm going to make this city, I'm probably trying to squeeze in about 6 or 7 suburbs, which isn't really possible when I'm trying to stick with a realistic sort of a theme. So that's sort of my struggle with this area, and that's just like the biggest struggle with this game just in general. And that's only because I'm building in this certain way and I want super realism. So that's the whole reason why I'm sort of building in this sense, and that is probably a really good reason why I have sort of built this whole area the way it is at the moment, because I want to know exactly where things are going to be going. And now that I have figured out the exact road patterns of this area, I can now start fleshing it out with certain services that exist within suburbs and communities. So that is my focus for this episode, is just plopping down particular elements that pretty much always sit within communities. And you know, I get all the ideas from Google Earth, just like floating around trying to see what are the most prominent aspects to put into these suburbs. And one thing that really stands out are recreational fields, and in particular, especially around LA, and I'm sure probably around just America in general. But baseball pitches seem to be the main theme. So I decided to kick things off by placing down just a very generic baseball pitch. This is probably one of the better ones that I've created, but it's not perfect, and I'm going to explain why. This whole area is not an area of extreme focus for Springwood. So this is obviously, like, I am obviously working pretty hard to make this look awesome, but at the same time I am being very conscious of how many props that I'm using, even though you can see me placing down like heaps of lights right now. But I'm staying really clear of just plopping down just crazy amounts of props and decals, and I'm trying to keep things very generic and basic, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to build just a very generic looking baseball pitch and then copy and paste it in other locations around this suburb. If you can call it a suburb, it's really like 6 suburbs. And the reason why I want to keep it generic is because I will then modify it as I plop it down. So for instance, I might place it down in one location around these suburbs, and then I can just tweak it a little bit so that the trees are a little bit different, and that's the size of the park is a little bit different. And that way I'm not having to redesign like 7 or 8 different baseball pitches. I can just copy the one that I've already built and just modify it however I like. So I am trying to keep it somewhat basic and not go too crazy with, you know, where, like, what sits where. And I also don't really want to just be building neighborhoods all the time. So if I was going to go with super detail in this area, you'd probably see these episodes for the next like 20 episodes of Springwood, which you really don't want to see. You want to see me just like plowing through these episodes and just smashing out new content and coming up with new concepts as well. So if I'm going to be doing that, which is what I want to be doing as well, because I don't want to be building these things all the time, I'm trying to be a little bit time efficient and just capture the idea of neighborhoods and communities, and rather than full detail work on what a community looks like, because I've probably got about 1,000 of them in Springwood, massive over exaggeration, but you know what I mean. But I really just wanted to get this build done and get the idea of what this neighborhood feels like. And it really comes together, and I'm really happy that I build in this particular way, because I think I'd get really burnt out with trying to make everything look perfect. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say. If you see holes in this, and if you're like, oh dude, I can see a floating car, or if that parking lot doesn't connect up there, I know, and it bugs me too that it's not perfect. However, I'm going to be working on this area for probably the next 5 or so weeks, which is a long time, but the reason why it's going to take so long is because I do have a couple of focuses that I want to draw my attention to the most, and detail work will have to come second, even though there are particular areas that I am going to really hone in and focus and detail, which I'm going to explain now. So the main concept for the next few weeks is to build the sense of a neighborhood and what is important for a neighborhood to function, and what are the services, and what does neighborhoods need to have so many people sort of working together and to create this sense of community. And then the other idea that I wanted to put in is, what are the different design aspects of neighborhoods that I really like, and how am I going to put them into this one location? Because like I said, this is quite a big area, but for me to get the idea of a neighborhood in an area like this is really, really tricky. So, neighborhoods sprawl for kilometers and kilometers. They're massive, especially in LA. Like, neighborhoods are just expansive and huge. And Springwood is like that. It is expansive. However, it is also a game, and it's not exactly expansive like the real LA, and it never ever would be, which means that I have to make some sacrifices with space, and it means that if I'm gonna have a neighborhood that is very grid based and follows a very rectangular pattern, the grids will probably only last for 2 or 3 blocks at max, whereas in a real life city that grid pattern will last for hundreds of blocks. So I have to make a lot of sacrifices with space, and the general concepts that I want to get within this area means that I have to really consider scale and how close everything's going to be, and where certain neighborhoods are going to sit. And that's why I'm so glad that I figured out where all of the roads are going to be in the last episode, and now I can just start figuring out where things are sitting within these road networks. Far out. That's 8 minutes of me just rambling about something I didn't expect to be rambling about. Sorry if you've been waiting for me to talk about what I've been doing on screen. I might have to backtrack and talk about some of the things. So basically, I have just been placing down mostly parks, because just trying to figure out exactly where I want just pockets of recreational areas. And right now I am working on this mall. And this is another concept that I wanted to put within this neighborhood, is I wanted there to be some central location for shoppers to be, for people in the neighborhoods to be going to the shops. And this isn't exactly the sort of mall that you'd go out of your way to go to. This is purely serving the people who live within this area. And I'm just looking at a couple of different malls within LA just to get some ideas of how they're generally structured and how they look. But I'm probably more interested in how they fit within this particular road network, because a mall like this hasn't been there from the start of this neighborhood. It's been there. It was like it's a development that's been like added to this particular neighborhood. So I tried to keep the road networks as if they were still connected, as if they were once connected. And this will be way better demonstrated in the cinematics at the end, so you should definitely stick around for them. But you can see where I've had the entrances to the car park, and if you were to follow them to like across the mall, they would connect back up to the road. And that's something that I wanted to achieve, to make it look like the mall was probably a more recent development, you know, and this road network was already pre-established. There were neighborhoods and houses around here, and then they decided to build a mall in this particular location. So it's just plonked in this location and it's cut off all the road networks. And this is something I notice in Google Earth quite often, and that's probably because I have spent so many hours just floating around Google Earth that a lot of more recent developments are actually disconnecting a lot of road networks, and they try to use a lot of the pre-existing roads to either form some sort of car park or some sort of access roads to this particular building. I just find it really fascinating because you know, it's always really fun to just imagine what used to be there and what sort of houses have now been, or what sort of buildings have been demolished to make way for this, you know, particular building. And quite often these malls are usually the things that are the more recent developments. Although malls are sort of dying these days, they're pretty empty, and you know, it's only going to get worse. I think people are less inclined to go to a mall these days than to buy something off Amazon. Even though Amazon isn't a massive deal in Australia, I know that in the US, I think that's like a huge, it's like a really big push from people shopping at malls and now purchasing more stuff online, which is something I think's quite interesting. But of course, Springwood is in the 80s, so malls are thriving. Even though there is nobody at this car park at the moment, this whole area is getting developed, and there are going to be so many houses and so many people moving into this particular location. Actually, if you look down on the bottom right corner, you can see we have a increase in 1,000 people, and that's because I am just slowly just building more houses within Springwood, and we're at 70,000 at the moment. The population's at 70,000, which is pretty crazy. It's the biggest I've ever built, and it's, yeah, I mean, at the moment we're pretty gung-ho with building more residential areas, because I just want to build up Springwood and really get a much bigger sense of a big city. Just because we've been making some real slow progress over the last year, really. We've been more focusing on the detail work, which I love. I love doing detail work. But you know, Springwood has a real charm with being such a massive place and being such a massive city that it's unlike any of my other series where I am actually doing a lot more detail work. So I am pretty excited just to focus on what big cities look like and trying to capture that within this game. So yeah, I mean, the next few episodes are going to be mostly based on, you know, developing neighborhoods and figuring out how cities intertwined and work together, and how I can capture the sprawl of what a city really looks like in what is a game. Even though it doesn't act like a game anymore, it's pretty much just a canvas that I am working on, which I think is pretty damn cool. What I'm building at the moment is a school, and I thought I'd go to just a touch of detail, but I have to admit, this school is absolute rubbish. I decided to keep a bit of the work that I do in it, but it's a piece of crap. I do such a bad job on this thing. So I'm kind of glad that it's really just in the background and something that I'm not really going to focus on. But I figured I'd just leave the footage in, because I wanted you to sort of see my general workings around for this this school. And you know, I'm trying to go for a high school, and I'm looking at mostly American high schools with these track and fields. Australian high schools, they don't look like this. Like, American high schools and Australian high schools are so different. I think we have a really different system. And yeah, I was mostly looking at the American high school. I built an American high school, well, I tried to, in my other series, Bordertown, and I did such a bad job of it. I was really discouraged. It took me so long to build it, and you know, I just wasn't happy. So that was another real poor attempt of me trying to build another high school. And I wasn't going into much detail. I was just trying to I just wanted to build a big school there so that it actually was educating a lot of these people around this area. However, I'm not really sure if I achieved exactly what I was trying to do, but oh well, at least there's a building there that's educating people. Now I'm actually working on a bit more of the neighborhoods. I'm plopping down these houses by Lijo. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but man, I owe him just a huge amount of thanks. He created these just beautiful, I guess they're Californian-esque buildings, but I've also used them in Border Town, and they're just amazing. And he's also created them as a Rico building that come in strips of 5 or 6 houses, and it just makes building neighborhoods super easy and really just super easy to create. I hope he creates a lot more these sort of assets for other areas or like around America, because I'll definitely want to use them in other series. But yeah, I was just sort of plopping them down. The real struggle with that area is that it's on a slope. This whole neighborhood is on a slope, and it means that it can create quite a noticeable height difference between the streets, the house, and then the back street, which is very close to the back entrance of the houses, because I generally like to build back roads into these houses. I think it looks a lot more realistic. But I much prefer building on slopes and uneven terrain than building on a completely flat city. That is my biggest regret with Border Town, is that it's built on pretty much a flat surface, and I hate it. Like I much prefer building on slopes around mountains and waterfronts and stuff like that. I highly encourage you to do that. Even though it makes it more tricky, I think it's a way better look. You actually just saw me place down a drive-in theater, and man, I have been sitting on that asset for about 2.5 years. When it was first released on the workshop, I was like, damn, that is a good fit for Springwood. I'm totally going to plop that down. I knew exactly where I was going to place it, and then I just never did. And I was still waiting to place it in that particular spot, but then I was like, stuff it up. I'm just going to place it in this one. Otherwise, I'm never going to use it. And obviously, drive-in theaters are a real thing of the past. You used to drive in and then watch the movie through the windscreen of your car, which I don't know. I feel like that's not a really good way of doing it. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I just went to an open air cinema and was watching a movie outside, and I was thinking, oh man, why am I watching this outside? I know it's quite ambient and quite cool doing this, but it's kind of not the best way to watch a movie. And I was just thinking about how annoying watching a movie through a car windscreen would probably be so much worse. So I'm not surprised that they're not really around these days. But definitely a cool fit for Springwood, so that was a great addition. And now I'm just finishing off this neighborhood by just creating a little bit of differences in the types of houses that I have around here. So placing down a few apartment blocks because, just trying to create a little bit of differences. Even though like a lot of neighborhoods would just pretty much keep the same type of house for blocks and blocks, and it'll just stretch for ages and ages. Like I said before, keeping with the scale, trying to create a little bit of differences and trying to squeeze in as many different concepts of neighborhoods within what is a much smaller space than what a neighborhood would really be. Yeah, trying to put in a couple of apartment blocks and little takeaway shops and commercial areas, and I think I might have placed down a petrol station too. Yeah, so really just trying to capture that feeling, which you're going to see it in a much better sense in the cinematics in just a second, if not right now. But that's pretty much it for this episode. If you have enjoyed it, don't forget to leave some nice feedback, and voting up this video helps out a ton, so thank you for doing that if you've already done it. I'm also running a competition on my Discord server. I've left a link to that in the description. You can win a City Skylines DLC, so that's pretty cool. I've run out of time to talk about it now. Oh well, go follow the link in the description if you want to win one of those keys. But that's it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode. Catch you later.